Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about Ed McBain's 87th Precinct mysteries. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about 5 of them. That's how many I've read this year. And they're kind of pretty short books, so I was never able to cobble together any individual reviews about them. But I felt like I should make a video about these books because I really, really enjoyed them in 2023. They've kind of become like, maybe not a new obsession, but definitely something that I plan on continuing for the foreseeable future, because there's so many of these books that are out there, and I've been really, really loving them. So in case you don't know what they are, the 87th Precinct Mysteries by Ed McBain. These are police procedurals. They're like, from what I understand, like the gold standard of the police procedural genre. And I could totally understand why. I did not expect to enjoy this because I've never felt drawn to that genre before. I picked them up on a whim. This was another thing that I discovered during Garb August, thanks to Criminale. This is his personal favorite series of all time. I know Ed McBain's his favorite writer of all time. And I was at a used bookstore looking for trash, because that's the whole point of Garb August, was to read trashy books. And it's a point of contention whether or not these are trash, these count. But I saw an entire shelf of 87th Precinct stuff, and I was like, let me try one. So I picked up like what looked like the shortest one. It was this one called Lady Killer. And I said, let me give it a shot. It was like $1. Why not? And I really, really enjoyed it. Now, after having read a few more, this one ended up being my least favorite that I read so far. But even still, I liked it enough where I was like, ooh, I gotta keep going with this. And so now I've gone back to that store. I've checked other used bookstores, and I've kind of gone down a rabbit hole a little bit. And I'm really excited about it. So I just want to talk a little bit about each of these books and give you like kind of quick fire reviews of them in case you are also interested in potentially starting this series. A few notes about the series that I've observed that you might find interesting or worth noting is that they can be read in any order, at least in my opinion. Like I said, there are a lot of books in this series. I don't actually know how many off the top of my head. But the good thing is, and I was concerned about, like, is this a good place to start? Well, what if I can't follow the thread, or I don't understand the characters? There is a continuity in these books. Like, the characters are recurring, so you'll get to know, like, Detective Meyer or Steve Carella, which is funny because every time I see his name, I think of just Steve Carell. And you'll see a lot of the same characters, and they do have, stuff that follows over from book to book, but that continuity is like a bonus. It's not like a central core of each book. What's important each book is the new mystery, the new crime that needs to be solved. And anytime there is reference to something that happened in a previous book, it's usually pretty well explained, or just explained enough where you just be like, okay, got it, I accept it, and then you're ready to just move on. All right, so just going in order, I'm going to talk about these in the order that I read them. I'll talk about Lady Killer first. While I did enjoy this book, like I said, this ended up being the least favorite I've read so far, although it is very good. The plot of this one is the detectives of the 87th Precinct receive a letter in the mail. And the letter it's your classic kind of ransom note layout where it's like cutout magazine, letters and stuff, pasted on paper. And it basically says, I'm going to kill the lady at like this time on this date, something like that. So it doesn't give any other clues than that. Just, I'm going to kill the lady, and a time and date. And the rest of the book is it's 12 hours. I'm going to kill a lady in 12 hours. That was what it was. And so the rest of the book is just the next 12 hours of these detectives trying to figure out who the lady is, so that they can go and protect them and prevent this murder from happening. Um, and it is an interesting plot, and it moves very, very quickly. I read this very quickly. All of these I read very quickly because they move at a really, really good pace. I remember the ending of this one being a little, I don't know, a little unsatisfying. It certainly is like a misdirection of sorts. It's not quite what you expect, but the logic that gets you there was a little. I was a little incredulous about it. I didn't quite buy 100% into it. That's the only reason I say this is maybe my least favorite one, just because that ending I was just like, I was a little lukewarm on. But a fun book, and it was enough to get me interested in the rest of the series. The next one I read after that was Let's Hear It for the Deaf Man. And this is an example of there being a continuity, but it not being a requirement to read in order, because the Deaf Man is apparently a recurring antagonist. And this isn't even like only his second appearance. I think this might be his third or fourth. But that did not foil my ability to enjoy this book in the slightest. And this is a bit closer to what I've come to expect from the 87th Precinct books, in that it's not just one mystery, it's several of them that are being investigated side by side. In this one, there is the deaf man has called the police station. No, he hasn't called the police station. Sorry, I'm just remembering this on the fly. He's sending like notes and clues to the police, basically implying that he's going to rob a bank at a certain time, whatever. And I think he even says like, "I'm going to rob this bank, and you're going to help me. Like the police are going to help." And so he continues to toy with the police and send them like pictures and notes and stuff like that, and they have to try to figure out like which bank is it going to be. You know, how are they going to help? You know, what is this? So how do they stop him? But there's also a mystery about there's a murder. A hippie is like basically crucified in a rundown building, and so a different set of detectives is investigating that murder. And then on top of that, there's also a cat burglar on the loose, where the like literally like a cat burglar, because they rob the people and then they leave a small kitten, like a real live kitten, behind as their calling card. So this was the first example that I experienced of these parallel storylines. And what I like about these books is that they remain separate. Like sometimes it's really fun for a mystery to have multiple things interlock, but because this is a police station, there are just different cases going on in this precinct, and they don't have to overlap, because that's just how crime is. Like there's always another crime happening. And the way that it's handled here is just very deftly, and very satisfying conclusions all around in this one. Particularly, I really enjoyed the ending with the cat burglar and the way that was resolved. That was a lot of fun. When the stories are like this with all the different mysteries, that really, really like engages me, and I have a lot of fun with this. Okay, so after Let's Hear It for the Deaf Man, I read Tricks, and of the 5, this is my favorite so far. I really, really love this one. It's a close one with the next one I'll talk about, but this is, to me, exactly what I talked about with Let's Hear It for the Deaf Man, where all of the different stories are really interesting. This is that, but cranked up to like 11, because there are so many different mysteries and crimes in this one, and all of them are really, really fun and engaging. And in some of the cases, the storylines do a little bit crossover, but like not a crazy amount. It's just that some of the investigations just kind of bump into each other. But there's so much going on. I have to refer to the interior cheat sheet here of all the different storylines. So there are liquor stores that are being held up by children who will yell "trick or treat," then they shoot the proprietor dead and steal all the money. There are pieces of a body that are being found at different places just all over the city, at like different alleys and dumpsters. There is a magician that goes missing, and it's not part of the trick. And then on top of that, like I guess the main bulk of the emotional story is there is a sting to try to catch a killer of sex workers in the city, and one of the detectives goes undercover as a sex worker to try to basically get picked up and stop this guy. And she has this trauma, I guess, in a previous book where she was sexually assaulted while on the job while doing something similar, I guess. And so it's her working through the trauma of that while also committing to this case. It's This is brilliant. This is a brilliant book. I really, really love this one. All of the mysteries in it are genius. Honestly, like it's so smart. The way that some of them interweave, the way that just the investigations go, um, and this is easily my favorite one, not just in terms of the mysteries, but also in getting to know the characters. I feel like in a few of these, the actual character development is, the background stuff, which is kind of good because of, again, how many of these there are. But this one has the mysteries and the character work to really just anchor it and make it really emotionally resonant. So I can't praise this book enough. Really, really loved Tricks. Something else I forgot to mention, this book, just like Lady Killer, also takes place over the course of a single night, Halloween night in this case, which is really cool because some of these books are, one night, just a few hours, and other ones are over the course of days or weeks or months. So a lot of different variety there. So after Tricks, I read Poison. This is completely on like the other end of the spectrum from Tricks, not in quality, but in the way that it's structured. Whereas that book had a lot of different mysteries going on, this is one mystery, and it's easily the longest of the books that I've read so far in the series. And I was concerned that only focusing on one mystery for this length was going to be where, the cracks started to show. But this is another one where the human story at the center of this really steals the show. Like the mystery is good. This one is about a woman who, like, men around her keep dying, essentially. Like the first guy is poisoned horribly, and then they find her and they start investigating the people around her, and another one of them is killed in a horrible way. And so the mystery is, like, why are the men that this woman knows being killed? And the main detective in this story is Detective Willis, and he gets too close. He ends up they end up kind of falling in love with each other. They begin a relationship, which is problematic, I guess. And it's just the way that he gets to know her and exploring more and more of her history and her background and uncovering maybe the untruths that she told, it gets really, really, like, goes to really dark places. But again, I mean, the character work, this is where I realized that Ed McBain isn't just a crime writer. Like it's not just about the mysteries. He really can write the people. Like this and Tricks really convinced me of that. These are strong, strong books. And this one in particular can be very tough at times. Like Tricks, I've spoken before on this channel about how I don't personally enjoy reading about like sexual assault and those kinds of storylines. I accept them as inevitabilities in books in certain situations, but I don't really like going too deep into it. It's a comfort thing. Obviously, like it's just feels oogie. This book goes deep into some really, really unpleasant sexual stuff. Like there is an entire chapter in here. It's like 20 pages long. That is very, very hard to read about forced sexual acts and forced like sex work, and it really like grossed me out. But in the service of the greater story, it all works really, really well. The mystery is really solid, and I really, again, enjoyed the character work in this one. So another really solid mystery, only one storyline, but riveting, really great all the way to the end. Reads just as quickly as the other ones that have a lot going on. And then we have Axe. This is the fifth and last of the 87th Precinct books I read this year. Another one that's just one mystery. So I know that, like, I said that I attribute to this series a lot of stuff going on in one book, but 3 of the 5 books I talked about all have only one story. So I don't know what gave me that idea, but Axe is another one where it's only one storyline. An old man, like in his 80s, is killed with an axe very brutally. And, the question is why? Pretty standard, like kind of straightforward investigation here. What I really like about this one, though, is the nameless like city that these stories take place in, or fictional. I don't know if it's nameless. I just can't remember it. But the fictional city is really described as like this horrible place where people will kill each other for a few cents. Nobody watches at each other's backs. Like it's really like pandemonium. And this one, the ending of this one, is the first one that I think really sold that to me, because the investigation is all like every avenue that they explore makes you think like, oh, it's going to be because of this reason. It's going to be because of this reason. And just like in real life, in these real investigations, it's not what you expect. Like there's a lot of dead ends that come up. And that happens in all of these, where a dead end will be reached. And you just have to go back to the drawing board, and maybe you catch a lucky break elsewhere. Like it's not your standard mystery where every clue is valid. You get dead ends, you get wrong turns. And then the result here is just the best example of like this city being just a really, really miserable place, and the people in it being miserable of all the other books. One thing I do want to touch on is whether or not these books are propaganda. Like, are they glorifying a corrupt police force? And kinda, I don't know. Like, to me, these read like what you would hope the police force could be like in terms of like investigating things, while also putting it through the lens of like a men's adventure story. Because like a lot of these officers do kind of like push the envelope a little bit. I mentioned like in Poison, one of them begins a relationship with like the primary suspect, like a pretty serious one. Like a lot, there are quite a few instances of like, oh, this witness or someone is a incredibly beautiful woman, and she's like immediately attracted to whoever the detective is. So it's got like those little touches of like what you expect from a book of this era, even though these kind of span from the 60s onward. So they have that lens through which to view them. If you find that like troubling, that's understandable. So maybe they wouldn't be for you. But if you enjoy in general like a men's adventure story, and you don't mind some like kind of eye-rolling sexism, it's totally fine. The police themselves, I haven't noticed any extreme instances of like police brutality or anything like that. Like they do, for the most part, I think, follow like the rules by the book. But you're gonna get definitely some instances where like they say something that's very much of the time, that maybe hasn't aged the best. It just kind of comes with the territory. But overall, they're fun books. I mean, it's just meant to be fun, and it's fun. Those are the 5 87th Precinct books that I read. I have another one on my shelf called Doll, which I'll get to first in 2024, and then I'm going back to that used bookshop, and I'm buying the whole stack, I think, because they're all really cheap, and I might as well. So maybe look forward to more of these kinds of reviews in the future for next year or for this year. But yeah, let me know if you've read these books. If you have a particular favorite that you recommend of the series, definitely let me know in the comments. Thank you for spending some time with me today. But now it's time to get back to reading.